Okay, got it. And what we are going to do is we'll take the recording and place it on our YouTube channel after the presentation, and Maria will also send out the link. So, right, Maria?
Yes, Dr. Hill.
Okay, and then please ask your questions in the chat box, and we will answer and address questions at the end. So we will be looking at chat boxes and private messages, and if somebody wants to unmute and ask a question, we'll do all that at the end. So let's, it's not wanting to, okay. I put way too many links in the chat box. I got overexcited. I haven't done one of these since last year. So you'll see links that say Qualtrics, and that's our research that Dr. Christine Drew and I and Maria are trying to look at what we're learning, what you're learning, how can we improve, and we're doing that through those Qualtrics surveys. And then also ACDD, who funds us, has links as well. So if you can please take the time to fill them out, because that helps them determine whether our program is worthwhile, that it's meeting its goals, and it actually helped us get funded for a second year. So please take the time to fill those out. They have to give feedback to the federal government. So what you're doing is helping for the future. So yeah, and then if you haven't already, please click on those links. Like I said, I put way too many in there. Just the one under Qualtrics, there's 2 links. Then under ACDD, there's 2 links. And then I think I repeated them a couple times. So you don't have to do every one, just one of each. And then they'll be available in English and Spanish. Okay, so Dr. Christine Drew is an assistant professor in special education. She's been faculty at Auburn for I'd say about 2 years maybe now. And we wrote the grant together with Maria, and we were funded by ACDD to provide Hispanic outreach to Hispanic outreach to families impacted by intellectual and developmental disabilities. And when we found simultaneous interpretation, we were so excited because it really helps us reach those families. And then we had Korean speaking families who said, what about us? And we were so very lucky to find AKEEP in Montgomery, and they have been providing Korean interpretation. So thanks to Ms. Du and Ms. Na for doing the interpretation in Korean, and for Mr. Reed and Ms. Iris for doing the interpretation in Spanish. Dr. Drew is at a conference right now. She's presenting. It's one of the things we have to do as faculty. Otherwise, she would be here. And I am Doris Hill, and I'm an associate research faculty in special ed, rehab, and counseling, the director of the Regional Autism Network, and one of the primary investigators on this grant. And I'm just so excited to be able to provide this for the state. Your turn, Maria.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hill. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. We are just so happy that parents and professionals are attending today's session. And I am so excited to have these 2 wonderful speakers that I have known for quite a while. And that finally we will have the opportunity for our families to hear about the importance of knowing what agencies we have in the state and how can they assist families. So my name is Maria Gutierrez. Many of you already know me. I am the family navigator for the region number 4 in the University of Auburn. We cover 20 counties. So we are the largest region of the state from the RAN. So my job is to work with families, connect them with resources, and we are here to assist you and to collaborate also with the professionals. So thank you for taking time of your busy morning and for being here. And now I will pass it to Andrea and Samantha. If you guys could please let us know what is your job title, what you do with the state agency. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Maria, for having us. My name is Andrea Carroll, and I am a rehabilitation specialist with the Alabama Department of Rehab Services at Lakeshore, which is just a small division of ADRS, and I'm located in Birmingham.
Good morning. My name is Samantha Wadsworth, and I work with Andrea at ADRS Lakeshore, and I'm also a rehab specialist. I have been with the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services for going on, I think it's about 15 and a half years. So Andrea and I both, oh, there's sound issues. Is that on my end?
I
Yeah,
think
you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, hold on one second.
Technical difficulties.
Better now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was trying to use headphones and I don't think they're working well. So let me start over. My name is Samantha Wadsworth, and I work with Andrea at the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services at Lakeshore office. And we are rehab specialists. I've been with the agency for about 15 and a half years, and I've kind of done different roles within Lakeshore, as Andrea has as well. And there's a program that we started back in 2009, and then later we expanded that program. We're going to be talking about it. It's called Conexiones. And that's how we began our relationship with Dr. Hill and Maria down in Auburn when we were expanding our program. So when they asked us to come and talk about ADRS and then our Connections program, we were excited. We haven't got to see them in a while, and even more excited to know that this is reaching maybe an even broader audience than we have had before. So that's very exciting. The agency is large and it contains a lot of different information. So we're going to try to do a bit of an overview and then talk about our specific division within the agency, and then about some of the services that would be most appropriate for adolescents and adults who have autism or other developmental disabilities. So I'm hoping that everything will be very clear. And if you have heard of our agency, if there's anything that you've got questions about, then I think Dr. Hill said that we would try to do questions at the end. If we can't get to those, or you don't want to ask in this platform, we will have our contact information. It's in the PowerPoint. So feel free to reach out to us or have Dr. Hill or Maria reach out to us. So, okay. Anything else, Andrea, that you need to say?
No, I think you covered it. I was just thinking it's been maybe 8 or 9 years since we first worked with Dr. Hill and Maria. So yes, it's like
I'm
a
fine.
reunion of sorts.
Yes, time flies when you're having fun, right? Or I'm getting old, I'm not sure. Okay, so again, we work for the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services. We're a state agency, and we're kind of unique in the nation as we provide services across the life spectrum. So we have different divisions that work with early intervention all the way up to individuals that are adults or are aging adults. I'm gonna have Dr. Hill just click through. Do you want me to just say next?
Yeah, that would be perfect. That's what I was going to say.
All right. So our agency sees roughly around 50,000 Alabamians each year. And we serve the entire state. So every county of the state is covered. You may not have an office in your state, but there is a office that covers your state. So in a little while, I'll show our website and how you can find out what office would cover your location, I guess I should say. And so like I mentioned, we have 4 different divisions. We have our early intervention program that is going to work with infants and very young toddlers. I think they may work up to maybe age 3. And this is going to be children that have been identified as having some sort of developmental delay. They will come in and do assessments and work with them. And then we have our children's rehabilitation program, and they specialize in helping children ages roughly 3 to 21 that have medical or physical disabilities. And then we have our division, which is vocational rehabilitation, and we work with adults, anybody, teens and adults, anyone working age and working toward employment or trying to retain employment, keep their job. And I'll kind of explain a little bit about that in a little bit. And then our last division is our independent living program, or SAIL, the State of Alabama Independent Living. And this is going to be for adults, and this is going to be similar to children's rehab, similar population. They're going to be working with individuals who have either physical or medical needs, and it's to provide any type of services that they would need to stay in the home to try to keep them out of a facility. So they do ramps, lifts, nurses, that kind of thing. But we're going to be focused on vocational rehabilitation, because that is our division and that's what we know. And I think that is probably the area that most of you would have, I assume, children aging into that program, or maybe already in that program or eligible for that program. So vocational rehab is the largest division within our agency, and we work with pretty much any different type of disability. So we work with deaf, hard of hearing, we work with physical disabilities, traumatic brain injuries, mental illness, ADHD, autism, cognitive disabilities, developmental disabilities. So we work with pretty much any type of disability population. And we are the largest division within the agency. And again, it's because we work with such a large age range and, pretty much any type of disability. So you can go ahead. So our goal in vocational rehab, again, is to help individuals become employed or retain employment. So maybe it's an individual who has a job and maybe something happened and that job may be in jeopardy, or maybe an onset of a disability occurred. So it may be an individual that had a stroke, for example, and they may have been able to do their job without any assistance before, but now that they've had a stroke, they may need some sort of accommodations or other things to help them to retain that job. And I just saw a comment pop up. So the age range is anyone that's working age. So we work with individuals starting 16 and up to 80 if you're wanting to work. So, all right, you can go to the next one. So one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on is we are a state agency. So we are funded by tax dollars, but we're also helping put tax payers back into the system. We are helping individuals get into the job market or get back into the job market. And that's important. But the most important piece is that employment can mean so much more than just money, right? So it can be, pride, dignity, independence, and becoming empowered to achieve one's maximum potential. So we're there to help them try to reach their goals with employment. All right, next. So the referral process, I included this because this can be maybe confusing, or a lot of times I will receive phone calls from parents or individuals that, they thought that they missed their opportunity for some reason, or they thought that the school had to refer them, and maybe they weren't identified as being, someone that needed vocational rehabilitation services when they were in high school. And so a parent will call and say, well, he didn't sign up in high school, so I guess he's not eligible to participate. And that's not true. So for one, you can enter our system at any age, 16 or older. You can enter, or you can re-enter. Let's say that maybe you weren't ready for employment, or maybe you had a job and that job ended. You can come back to Voc Rehab to start trying to pursue that next job. And as far as the referral, a referral can come from the school. That's a typical one for our teenagers. A teacher may identify several students and talk to the vocational rehabilitation counselor about those students. So we do get referrals from the school system. However, it does not have to come from the school. It can be a family member, it can be a parent, it can be, if it's an adult, it can be a self-referral. They can call on their own and say, hey, I think I'm eligible for services. I would like to sign up with you guys, and they can start that process. But it also can be physicians, therapists, or other people. But I just think it's really important to know you do not have to have an outside referral source. You can refer your son or daughter, or you can refer yourself. The next step of that, though, you would need documentation to start that eligibility process. We have to make sure, we have documented you are eligible for our services. And so that could be different things, and it kind of depends on the diagnosis. But it may be, IEPs, it could be neuropsychological, it could be medical records. It just kind of depends on what documentation would show your diagnosis, if that makes sense. And then the next step is everyone is connected with a vocational rehabilitation counselor, and they help you kind of identify what are your goals and what kind of services we have that may help you reach those goals. And so we're going to kind of look at what those different type of services can be in a few minutes. And then they will start setting up, implementing those services for you. So that's kind of the process for entering our program. Okay, next. So I had mentioned, we have a website if you want to go to find out what office would cover your, you or your student. I say student because I assume many parents would be watching this with children or young adults. So if you go to rehab.alabama.gov, then it will show you can go ahead and click to the next one. And up in the corner, it has location. So you would just go there, click on that, and then you would go to the next part. It would be a drop-down box, and you would pick what service, what division within the agency, so vocational rehabilitation services. And then you would click on that, and then you would put in your county. So go to the next slide, I think has that. Yes, so you would pick what county you live in, and then click one more time. Sorry. And then that would give you the contact information for that region. And we do have, if the website would not work for you and you would need the information translated, you can request translators to get that information, I think over the phone. And I can find out how that's done and get that to Maria and Dr. Hill. I'm not sure. I would have to, I'm responding to Yolanda's question. Let me find out.
So the question was, can children without medical insurance or social security number qualify for ADRS services?
I know insurance would not be necessary. I would have to find out about Social Security number. That may have changed. Do you know, Andrea?
I was thinking that they did have to have a social security number just because of the way we are funded. But I think we better double check on that just to be sure.
Yes. But that's an excellent
I'll
question.
send a quick email and see if I can find out while we're here.
Perfect. So eligibility for Voc Rehab services. Again, we work with people that are considered working age. So 16 years or older is typically when we start working with individuals. And again, like I said earlier, you do not have to come in, at a certain age. If you maybe didn't know about vocational rehabilitation services and your child is out of high school, that doesn't matter. You can, call and set up those services. And again, you can be, 60 years old and come and use our services for the first time. And you also can open a case more than one time. So let's say for some reason, maybe you got the job that you wanted and you're working and then something happens and you lose that job, you can come back to your rehab counselor. So it's not a one-time thing. It can be, if you need the services more than once, you can access those more than one time. So the other eligibility for services would be that the individual must have a physical or mental impairment, which results in a substantial barrier to employment. So there has to be something that you would gain from working with us, if that makes sense. So we would need you to, have a barrier that we could try to help you overcome. And that could be, learning appropriate social skills, or that could be needing different kinds of accommodations to achieve those goals. It can be varied. Individuals that are on the autism spectrum would qualify and would have some sort of barriers, even if they have, very high IQs and did very well academically. They may struggle with the social skills and being able to market their skills and things like that for employment. And that's something that we have seen. And Andrea will be talking about that in a little while, and how we address those needs. So again, just there needs to be some sort of barrier to employment, and then, reasonable expectations that they can benefit from our services. Because one, we want them to come in and for it to be a beneficial experience and not something that doesn't help them, become successful. So even the agency is large, and like I had shown earlier, we have 4 different divisions. Even within the vocational rehabilitation division, we have a lot of different sort of sub-programs. I don't know what you would call it, but we have people that specialize and work specifically with individuals who have visual impairments, deaf, hard of hearing, traumatic brain injuries. There's just different kind of divisions within the services. And we do have services that we've developed that are specifically tailored for individuals who have autism or other developmental disabilities. But the types of services that you may receive is going to be very different depending on the individual needs. So you may see some similarities. Some people that may get some same services, but everyone's program is kind of individualized to what they need to try to reach that employment goal. Okay, next. So here are the services. These are very broad categories of the services that we have at our different 20 VR offices. And again, we have offices across the state and that serve every county. And this is just an overview of some of those services that are provided. So we have orientation and mobility, and that is for individuals with visual impairments. So that may be helping them increase their independence. And on the vocational rehab side, that may be helping them learn the layout of a new work environment. We have vocational assessments. So we do a lot of work to try to help you identify what kind of employment goals that you would like to have. So we're going to look through a vocational assessment at your interests, your strengths, and what are your barriers, so that we can kind of help see what kind of services and what kind of accommodations or assistance that you may need to help you reach the goals that you have. We have education and counseling. Like I mentioned, when you come in for vocational rehabilitation services, you're assigned to a rehab counselor, and that person is who kind of stays with you throughout the process. So until you get your job and you're successfully employed and everything's going well, that person is with you throughout that process. They're the ones who help you identify what type of services you need, and they are the one who makes those connections and put you in contact with those services. And then you also have educational services, and this is a very broad term. We have a lot of different individuals that, again, we work with all disabilities. So we have a lot of individuals that may be going to college. So we have a college preparation program. We have several different programs within the agency that helps students. There's too many to try not to make it confusing, but tell you what services we have. But we do have programs that help prepare students for college and help them identify training programs that may be appropriate. A technical program or a university. We have job training. So we will help with classes, to help identify, professionalism, interviewing skills, building a resume. And we have, just lots of different classes that do that. We also provide opportunities for students to go out and receive training in actual work environments. We have job placement services. So we have individuals that go and help someone, find a job and help them get acclimated to that job, help them provide whatever supports they need to help them learn how to do that position. We have assistive technology. We have technology specialists, and we have rehabilitation counselors that will come in and see if there's technology that can help you do your job better, or help you in college or in your training program. And this can vary from, adapting things on wheelchairs, or, using apps on iPads, to using different types of computer programs. It's very fast. We have a lot of students that may need things to help them with note taking. So I know for individuals with autism, that may be a need, processing all that information. We have different devices that kind of help them be able to do that. And also helping them kind of know how to get accommodations in college and how to advocate for themselves. And then we also have post-employment assistance. So we partner with a lot of different agencies or programs throughout the state. And one of the things that they assist us with is, after someone has received a job, they can help follow up. So if they go through what's called supported employment, where they would go and have, this would be appropriate for individuals who have autism and or developmental disability. They may need someone to help them get the job and then help them with training on the job. So they may need some supports, learning the job and putting in different strategies and techniques to help them be successful on that job. So that is something we do through our partners throughout the state, we call them CRPs, Community Rehabilitation Programs. And they will help identify that job, get the person on the job, provide the job coaching, and then they will, as the person is becoming successful at the job, they will fade or stop coming as often. until they're doing it independently. But then they have these post-employment services where they go back and check on them to make sure everything's still going well. So that's just kind of a little bit of an overview. I did put in a couple of scenarios just to kind of show how two individuals' path might look for our services. So the first individual we have would be an 18-year-old young man with autism spectrum disorder, and he wants to become an engineer. Okay, so he comes in, meets with his vocational rehabilitation counselor. You can identify that he wants to become an engineer, and this next slide will show kind of what that process may look like. So he might come in, and the rehab counselor may request that he get a vocational evaluation. So this is to kind of identify, okay, is being an engineer a good fit for this person? Does it match up with what they're really interested in? Do they have the strengths to be able to successfully pass the classes? And what kind of barriers do they have? And how can we help them, overcome those barriers, through accommodations and technology, and through our different services of training programs like our college prep and that sort of thing. So that vocational evaluation kind of gives us a glimpse of, this person. What are they interested in? What are they good at? And what kind of barriers might they have? What kind of struggles can we try to help them overcome? So it's a really good starting point. So after the vocational evaluation, they may determine that, okay, he's 18 and he's wanting to go to college and he's not driving yet. Maybe he's very anxious. He has a lot of anxiety about driving. So we have a driving program, and I'll tell that in a little while, but the counselor may then refer him to that driving program. And then, can you go back for just a second, Dr. Hill? Sorry. Okay, and then we may go the other way. Thank you. Going forward.
Sorry, when I try to let somebody in or do anything with my screen, it advances the slides.
Oh, yeah.
I apologize for that.
That's no problem.
So Maria's going to have to let everybody in. Is this where I need to be?
Yeah, I think it's back maybe 3 slides. One more. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So, the individual that wants to become an engineer, we did an assessment. Okay, they may have done the vocational evaluation, and then they may come through, like I had mentioned, the driving program. And again, I'll give you more details about that. But they may go through our driving training program, and then they may go through social skills training and our college prep to help them get ready for college and know how to, how college is going to be different than high school, how to study, how to ask for accommodations. It's a week-long program that just kind of helps prepare them for college life and to hopefully help them be more successful. And then we may see that there may be some assistive technology that's needed. If they're going to go to college, they may need some note-taking devices or that sort of thing. And then we may not see them for a long time. They go off to college, they do amazing, and then they get out of college and they have their engineering degree, and they would maybe come to us for employment development services so that we can help them get ready, create resumes, prepare for interviews, that sort of thing, to get that engineering job. So that's one scenario. Another scenario would be an 18-year-old young woman with autism spectrum disorder and an intellectual disability, and she wants to begin employment upon graduation. So she and her family are undecided on a career path. So she may come in and exiting school, and so they're looking at her getting a job. Go to the next one. Okay, so her path may look a little bit different than the young man that was going to go get an engineering degree. She may meet with the VR or the Voc Rehab counselor to get some guidance and counseling on what kind of job might be appropriate for her, what she might like. And she may get sent also for vocational evaluation to determine what are her interests, what are her strengths, and what kind of barriers that she may have. Also through social skills or job readiness training. And then she may begin supportive employment services. So since she has an intellectual disability, she may need some support initially on that job. So that's where we would use one of our partners, one of our community rehab programs, and they would work with her to help her find a job and then help job coach her and support her on the job. And then they would provide those long-term supports. So her services may not last as long as the young man's, because he's going to get a 4-year degree and then go into employment, where this young lady is getting out of school and wanting to go into employment right away. Okay, next. Yes, absolutely. A GED is the equivalent of a high school diploma, so there shouldn't be any issues. Hold on, let me read that. I was trying to pull up that question, but someone was asking if you had a GED as opposed to a typical high school diploma, would you still be able to receive the services? And again, we work with any type of diploma track. Okay, so we work with different partners. Like I'd mentioned, we have what we call CRPs, or community rehab programs. And we have lots of partners throughout the state to help us help our individuals get employment and keep employment. So it's really different depending on the location, of the state that you're living in, because there's lots of different providers out there. So we are one kind of internal program within vocational rehab. So Andrea and I had mentioned we work for ADRS Lakeshore. So we work for the Department of Rehabilitation Services, but we provide those type of, I guess you could call it like hands-on services. So those evaluations and that kind of thing. So if you go to the next slide, I think it shows what services we provide. Yes, so these are kind of our 3 main programs. We do adaptive driving training. And I wanted to bring this up in this presentation because I have a lot of times for individuals that I've worked with who have autism and ADHD, that's those are 2 that I see a lot, where the individual is very apprehensive about driving. Maybe it's just anxiety, but they're not ready to drive. So this program helps them a lot of times feel more comfortable, because it's kind of like a driver's ed through school, where they're going to have cars with brakes on the, on the other side. These guys are highly trained, and they do driving training to help the individual be able to get their license. And what's really nice about this program, and especially helpful for those who do not like novel situations, new people, through the driving program, the driving trainers that they've been working with can actually license them. So they don't have to go to the DMV and get the, sit down with a new person and do the driving test. That can be done with our driving trainers that they already have been working with. So the only thing that they would have to go to the DMV for is to get their picture taken. So that can be very helpful. And I know a lot of times that just having someone who isn't a family member help them learn to drive, and having that sort of security of trained to do this and has a car with a brake on the other side can provide some reassurance. So I had already talked about vocational evaluations, but again, that is another service that we provide. And then I always say, if it's not driving and it's not testing, then it falls into employment development typically. So this is our division where we are helping people get ready to go to work. We are working on career exploration, maybe helping them identify, narrow down career choices. We do services that are job readiness. So we're going to do different kind of classes. We do this a lot with students. that are going to be entering work for the first time. So we talk about professionalism and interviewing skills and just all kinds of different categories that are things that they're going to need that, again, we're trying to be successful on the job. So we want them to know, how to act appropriately. So we also have our social skills training. And, I had mentioned earlier, we have our Connections program, which is how Dr. Hill and Maria and Andrea and all got connected. And Andrea is going to talk about that. I think let's see, is there one more slide? No. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea. I know that was a lot of information, and it can be very overwhelming. So again, please feel free to reach out to us for further clarification on things.
Thank you, Samantha. I just wanted to, before we get too far into talking about connections, there were a lot of questions that came through when you were talking that I think might be a good time to answer them now, because they're more about vocational rehab and how to apply for services. And that way people maybe won't get too confused if we go ahead and talk about a few of those things now. So feel free to help me answer any of these, Samantha. I did find out that you do have to have a social security number to apply for VR services. I did not get the why, but I think it's because of the way that we are funded through federal funds. With that being said, one of the questions that I want to answer is that all of our VR services are free. We are funded by the federal government. And so you do not have to pay out of pocket for anything that we provide. With that being said, some people may get funding for school or some other program, and that would be on a sliding scale. So you may have to pay for some of your own things as far as that goes, like laptops for computer for college or something like that. But if it's a service that we offer here through vocational rehab, those services are free. Question that came through, I'm just going to read them and see if we can answer them fairly quickly. If a student has a disability and is 14, who should let the parents know about ADRS transition services so they can apply? There should be a VR counselor in every high school that is in the state, and you can ask the teacher, if you have not met that VR counselor person yet, how to get in touch with them, and they should be able to make a connection for you guys to meet and talk about services so that the parents are involved. Next question, who do we need to talk to update annual information regarding new conditions like seizures, etc.? Any kind of changes with the person that's applying for VR services, you can call your VR counselor anytime to update any of those diagnoses. So if there is something that comes along and you don't have to wait for a review, you can just call. And that's really what we hope, is that you'll have a relationship with that VR counselor so that they kind of know what's going on with you and they can walk you through this whole process. Can VR assist with assistive technology? Yes, and that is another program that we offer here at Lakeshore and throughout the state, depending on what kind of technology you need, whether it's looking at different computer programs that might be helpful for note taking, all the way to, I think Samantha showed a few of those in her slides, like things for hearing and visual impairments, anything that you can think of, we have technology for that. So yes. How old does my child need to be to make a referral? For VR services, referrals can come, like I said, I think it starts at 16. Before that, they would be with children's rehab services. And before that, like the early intervention that we talked about. So really any age can apply for services. It just depends on which division you're going to be with. Does the person have to have Medicaid in order to be a client of ADRS? No, you don't have to have Medicaid or insurance. Like I said, all of these services are free. What is the role of the counselor? Are parents included in the process of planning, especially if my child has an intellectual disability? Yes, absolutely. The counselor their role is to guide you through the process to get whatever accommodations the student needs to become employed and be successfully employed, whatever that is. So yes, parents are definitely involved in the planning process. If you have IEP meetings or 504 meetings at the school where your child goes to school, the counselor will be involved in those meetings, and then they can also do their own plan, individualized plan for employment through vocational rehab. And they will meet with you as often as needed, but definitely several times throughout the year, just to make sure that you're on track with that plan. And if anything changes, they can change that plan and add new services or whatever needs to happen. Another question, a person that has a 504 plan at school under ADHD, can they be qualified for services? Yes, as long as that impedes their ability to become successfully employed or maintain employment, or if they need some kind of accommodation, that's when they would want to apply for services with VR. Can VR provide services for a person who is nonverbal with low IQ? Yes, absolutely. And it just depends on what services you need. But yes, you can definitely apply for services. And when we talk about vocational assessments, who requests those? Once you have opened a case with a VR counselor, they are the ones that would decide or determine whether your student needs a vocational assessment. And that is usually just to try to figure out what types of careers they might be interested in, what types of accommodations they might need to be able to reach that career goal. That is the main purpose of a vocational assessment. Let's see, a couple more. How can ADRS collaborate with the school? My child is 16 and I have never heard about this agency. And you are correct. That happens a lot. We've heard that. So ask your teacher if you have not met a VR counselor yet, and they can probably find out who that person is for that school. Or you can even go on our website, which I believe we have at the end of our presentation, so that you can, where also Samantha showed that earlier, where you can click on your area and find out who the counselor is for your specific area. Do other states have similar agencies? Yes, they do. Every state should have a vocational rehab agency that does similar things. They're not all the same. They don't all offer the exact same things that we do. From what we've heard, Alabama has lots of great services that a lot of other states don't. So it's good that you live in Alabama, hopefully. Is there a cost? No, we talked about that. How often should assessments need to be done? Specifically, if my child has been a client under CRS since he was 7, but now he's in the 9th grade, that is the perfect time for transition. At that point, his CRS case manager will usually talk with a VR counselor, and they will collaborate on transferring that case to vocational rehab. So once he's in high school, he can start getting VR services at that point. Where is Lakeshore located, and is there a driving training program in the Auburn area? Yes, we are located in Birmingham, but we offer services across the entire state. And so any of your vocational rehab offices can make referrals for the driving program. And we do have driving trainers in all areas of the state. Okay, I think we're going to talk more about what job readiness is, so I'm going to skip that one. Is there a required IQ for a person to be employed or attend college? No, not a required IQ. College has their own determinations as far as who they will admit into the college. But as far as to be employed, no, that does not matter. And we work with everyone on every level for employment. Whew, okay, I think I answered all those questions. I'm going to start talking about our Connections program. And then if you guys have questions, that Maria may send those to Samantha while I'm talking, and then hopefully we can answer all those for you at the end. So now that hopefully you have a little bit better understanding of what vocational rehab is and what we do, and then Samantha talked a little bit about Lakeshore, that we are located here in the Birmingham area. And we do cover the entire state with our services as well. So we have employees that are stationed here in Birmingham and then throughout the state. And our division, Samantha and I work in the Employment Development Services division. So not driving, not testing, but all the other stuff, like she said. And one of the programs that she and I started, believe it or not, it makes me feel old to say this, but almost 14 years ago, we're about to start our 14th session of Connections, is this social skills training class. And so go ahead and click to the next slide. So I'm going to talk to you about what Connections is, why we started it, and kind of a little overview of how it works. And then hopefully at the end, if you have questions, we can answer those for you. So what is Connections? You can go ahead and click on to the next one. And go ahead and one more. Thank you. Oh, wait, did it skip one? Maybe not. There it is. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Connections is a group-based service through our agency, ADRS Lakeshore, that helps with social skills. We enhance those social skills for students who have autism spectrum disorders or related disabilities with social challenges. So if you have a student that maybe they don't have autism, but they do have social challenges, that is an acceptable disability to refer to our program. It really is not based on disability. It's just that seems to be probably the one that is referred to us the most. But anyone with the social challenges is really the person that we help in this program. Next. So the purpose of Connections is that we want to assist with the student to make a smoother transition from adolescence to adulthood, increase those peer relations or friendships, and increase the likelihood of gaining and maintaining employment. So not just getting the job, but keeping a job. Next. The uniqueness of Connections, and maybe what's different about Connections than a lot of other social skills training classes, is that we do focus on employment. So every lesson that we have, we talk about the lesson in general, and then we figure out how that ties into employment eventually, because that is the goal. Since VR has the goal of everyone that is applying for services, employment should be that goal. So that's why we focus on that in this program. Next. Our participants they have to be active ADRS consumers that are referred by their rehab counselor. So just like I talked about, and as Samantha showed you the process of applying for services, you can't just call us and say, I want to show up and come to your Connections class. You have to be a consumer with VR and with ADRS, and then the counselor will make that referral. And students must be experiencing some sort of a difficulty with social relationships. Maybe it's at home, at work, at school, all of the above. That is a perfect referral. Transition age, so 16 to 23, I would say we do have, we have had some students in the past, or as our agency calls them, consumers. We have had some consumers in the past that are a little bit older than this age range, but we usually talk to the counselor to figure out why they're being referred and what the issues are to make sure that they are appropriate for the groups. And of course, like I said, that they are planning to pursue employment. That is the main goal. Next. Our classes for Connections are held in the evening. We did that on purpose so that students and parents have time to get home from school and maybe hopefully eat dinner, do whatever they need to do, and then come to class. And each class starts in August. It is a 10-month long program. So we start in August and we run through the next May of the next year. It is concurrent with the school year. I will say the change in the last 2 years is because of COVID. We could not meet in person, so we transitioned and did online groups. It was not exactly the same as being in person, but it really was helpful, and we could see a lot of changes even online. We did not get to do the outings that we talk about, so we do have a combination of classroom sessions and outings within the community. So that was a little bit different the last 2 years, but we are crossing our fingers and praying and hoping that this next group we get to be in person again. So that's kind of how the sessions work. Next. When Samantha and I started this program back in 2009, we had our very first location in Birmingham. We actually had no idea that there would be other locations. We didn't even know if anyone would show up for the class on the first night. And so we were just excited that we had 9 students that came to participate. And that was a great, perfect first group to kind of work out the kinks and figure out how this is going to work. And before we knew it, we got really popular and we started getting lots and lots of referrals. And then we started having counselors and parents like Maria ask us like, hey, can we get one of those programs in our area? And so we have evolved after 2009 and 2014, like we mentioned earlier, we started in the Auburn area and that program has now moved to Montgomery. In 2017, we started one in the Wiregrass, the Dothan Enterprise area. And then in 2018, North Alabama. So we have one in Decatur that covers the Decatur and Huntsville areas. So we've had over 400 participants at this point participate in Connections. Next. The great thing, I guess, that happened because of COVID is that because we got to go virtual and have the Connections program online, we are hoping that that is something that we can keep as part of Connections, even when we go back in person, because even though we have 4 groups across the state, there are some individuals that would like to participate in the program that can't get to one of those locations. So we are hoping to have this virtual option for those individuals. All right, next. This is our flyer in case you see it at a school or in a vocational rehab office. And we will make sure Maria, if you don't have this already, we will make sure you get this so that you can send that out to anyone that needs it. You can go to the next one. So when Connections started in 2009, we had 2 staff members. That was Samantha and myself. And now we have one that we still need. We have a vacancy, but we have 14 staff members that help with Connections now. So across the 4 groups, these are the student group leaders and our assistant. And you can skip to the next slide. We also now have a parent group that meets at the same time as Connections. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but these are the parent leaders. So you can skip to the next one. So why did we start this program? I will say that it was Samantha's bright idea first. And once she had this great idea, she and I collaborated and came up with the curriculum for the program because you can hit the next slide actually. As we know, with autism spectrum disorders, they differ from other developmental disabilities because of the challenges that come along with the social relationships and communication and the deficits that impact all of the other areas of life, including work. And that's important to us. So you can skip to the next slide. So at the time, Samantha and I were both actually vocational evaluators. And what we were seeing were that consumers were having trouble getting employment, but even if they were able to be employed, they were having trouble with social skills issues and communication on the job. They could do the job tasks, but there were a lot of social and soft skills that may have been inappropriate or they just didn't have to be successful on the job. So not only that, but they were feeling isolated due to a lack of structured social interactions once they graduated high school. So it was just something that we did lots of research and came up with the curriculum that we're using now. So you can skip ahead. After 9 years of doing the program, we wanted to follow up with some of our graduates and do a focus group. And that was to find out, we invited them back to Lakeshore. And on one night, we had lots of questions that we asked and got all of their answers, but we wanted to know how they felt about the program when they were in it, how they feel about it since they've graduated from the program and what did they feel like worked for them and what needed improvement. And so skip to the next one. What we found out, or what we asked, is in what ways are you more independent after completing Connections? This was just one of the questions that we asked. And on the next slide are some of the answers. A lot of them said that now they have a job, they were able to talk with people easier. Some of them were living on their own and paying their own bills. Feeling more independent, more socially accepted, having better boundaries with people, and being able to talk to people in a more assertive way when they needed to. So that was exciting for us to hear, because a lot of the things that we were hoping, or that maybe we were trying to train them, some of the lessons that we had really didn't have anything to do with this much success. And so we were just excited to hear these things at the end of those years. But it did help us kind of focus some of the things that we were doing as well. So you can go ahead on the next slide. So how exactly does Connections work? Like I've said, Samantha and I did build this curriculum together. You can skip to the next slide. So we spent time researching other social skills programs. We went to trainings with several autism experts. I'm not going to name drop because I know everybody knows who all those famous people are, but we got to meet some really cool people and read some great books and do lots of research to come up with the curriculum that we did. And then being able to actually implement those things over the years. Now, I think that we're about to start in our 14th year. We worked out a lot of the kinks throughout those years and changed things as we went along to make sure that it was really beneficial for everybody that was attending the program. Next. So our curriculum combines classroom lessons and then outings within the community to reinforce the skills that they're taught in the class, because we know that just going and sitting in a class and listening to a lecture or doing some activities in a classroom is not going to change behavior. We need more than that. So reinforcing those skills, not only with the community outings, but also reinforcing those lessons at home. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we did that. Next. So each topic that we cover starts in a very general format, and then we focus it down and concentrate on how it applies to work. So for example, one of our topics is dining etiquette. And you might think, okay, I get how that involves social skills, but I don't understand how that really helps with work. And so we talk about appropriate table manners and all of the things that come along with dining etiquette, but also thinking about how that might affect someone on the job. Do you have to eat lunch in a break room with other people? Are you ever going on a job interview where you might be asked to come to a restaurant? Do you have to share a kitchen at your job? Like maybe you have to share a refrigerator or microwave, or knowing those boundaries again about where your food goes and not to touch other people's food. So a lot of the things that you wouldn't necessarily think are about work really can apply to work. So that is our goal. Next. For each class, there is a student manual, a leader manual, and a parent manual. And that is for consistency so that all of our groups across the state are doing the same thing. We make sure that everyone has the same tools that they need and the same lessons. And we even do trainings with our Connections leaders to make sure that we are training everyone in the same way. Next. So in our student manual, we have all of the topics that are covered in our classes, and we start kind of slow and we work our way towards that work goal. So starting out with greetings and first impressions and just the basic communication skills, conversations. We go through dealing with stress and anxiety, how to work together in groups, all the way to applying and interviewing for jobs. That is where we usually end. So you can click on the next one. The parent manual is really more of a summary of what we talk about in class. So we don't give them all of the lessons that we do in the student manual, but parents know what we're going to be covering in that week's session. And then we give them tips and help in reinforcing those things at home. So things that we ask them to do with their student, things to talk about, different behaviors to apply at home so that that information is generalized at the home environment and makes sense all the time and not just when they're in class. Next. All right, so after, I think it was sometime in our first year of Connections, we would end class and the parents would show up to pick up their students, and Samantha and I would see all these parents hanging out and talking and sharing all these ideas and information. And we were like, wow, this is so cool. I love this, but it's like 9 o'clock and we're ready to go home. I think the parents might need their own group. And so we started the next year with a parent group that meets at the same time as their students. And that's in each location. We have gone virtual with the parent group as well, and that may continue. I think a lot of parents find it helpful to not have to always stay for meetings if they have other things going on, or if their student drives themselves, then they don't have to come with them. So we may do a virtual component. We haven't quite figured all that out yet. But we know that data suggests that parents of adolescents with ASD report stress levels that are beyond even the highest levels of depression and anxiety that are also identified by parents of children with severe intellectual disabilities. So we know this is needed for sure. And click to the next one. Giving caregivers and parents the opportunities for this group to receive advice and instruction on how to help their participants implement and reinforce their skills that they learn in Connections, discussing concerns that they have with loved ones transitioning into adulthood. So trying to create that thinking about independence for their student. And sometimes that's harder for the parents even than it is for the students. And then we also have guest speakers that come in. And so they share resources and support. So for example, we would have Dr. Hill and Maria come and talk about RAN. And we've had people come and talk about Social Security benefits and living wills and future planning, all of that kind of stuff. So just lots of great information in those parent groups. Next. So that's kind of a big overview, I would say, of the Connections program, and then an even bigger overview of all of our services at Vocational Rehab, just combining all of those things together with home, school, and work, and helping everyone be successful. So if you want to flip to the next slide, that has our contact information, or maybe not. There it is. So there is our email, our phone number. You can call that if you want to talk to us, or email us. And then our website, and also our Facebook page if you're at all interested in what's going on at Lakeshore. I'm sure there have probably been lots of questions that have come through. So I'm going to let Samantha, did you get those?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, before you start on the questions, I was just going to say, maybe Maria, you could put the links in the chat, because every time I touch my screen, my slides get wonky. So if you could do that, please complete a post assessment. We'll address the links in the chat. And we are not going to begin the question portion of the training in 5 minutes. We're going to do it now. So I'm going to go back to your contact information, Samantha and Andrea, and then we'll continue. So if you can complete those assessments while we're having the question and answer session, that would be great.
I'm going to go ahead with the questions. Okay. So there was a question if someone from ADRS can assist a parent in applying for SSI that is already a consumer but still in high school and will be there until they're 21 years of age. I I don't know the answer to that. That would be a question to ask the vocational rehab counselor to see if they could send to someone, if they have a referral that they could use for that. And then, so I think Andrea addressed this one, but for the Connections program, it said, the question is, heard about this program, but was told it was only for people with autism. Correct. So I think that's probably referencing the Connections program. And even though it was designed for individuals to have autism, we do every single class, every single year, we do have a mix of different disabilities. So it's going to have a large portion will have autism spectrum disorders. However, we have lots of different disability populations represented. And again, if they are having some sort of social issues, maybe it's they're very shy, they have trouble making friends, maybe they don't understand boundaries, anything that's going to kind of harm them from being able to keep a job and, you know, just have good relationships as an adult. Of course, our focus is on employment, but we want them to have a well-rounded life. And so, you know, part of that program is helping them know how to make friends and build relationships. So if a student, and I say student just because we're working mostly with teenagers, but if that individual is having challenges, you know, maybe they've exited high school or they're about to, and they've had trouble making friends, and you worry about them being able to interact appropriately at work, then they would be appropriate for Connection. So you do not have to have an autism diagnosis to come into the Connections program. Okay. Now we do ask for the Connections program, you know, we only have a few small requirements. We do ask that they can function within a group. And by that, we mean that they will be able to, you know, listen to the content, interact with other people, that they will benefit from being in a group. If they cannot, maybe that they're have a lot of trouble, maybe they're very disruptive, maybe they have a lot of severe anxiety from being in a group, we would want to do something different with them and do some more individual social skills and maybe work toward doing the group. So how long is the process from when you apply and are informed you are a client to access this program? That is a great question. And it really varies from person to person. And a lot of it has to do with the referral process. So how quickly you're able to get in, you know, the determination, documentation, what time of year it is, because we only start Connections because we want to keep the same group of kids. We want them, again, I say kids, but participants. We want to keep the same participants that start as kind of a cohort, a group, that they kind of go through this process together. So we don't have people kind of coming in the middle of it. And so we start that in August. So you may start vocational rehab services in September, and you would have to wait until the next August to access this program. Can I get the information about the Connections program in Auburn, the place, schedule, and so on? So we do not have a program in Auburn. We have a program in Montgomery, and we have individuals that come from Auburn to that location. But we can get you, you know, the flyer and the information for that. So my child is still in high school, but the school thinks he may be able to work groceries. However, he enjoys working with dogs and cats. How can I support my child asking the school and his counselor about his preferred career path? That's a great question. You know, just talk to the VR counselor. A lot of times I think people have a misconception that you have to go through the teacher to get to the rehab counselor. You can directly talk to the rehab counselor and let them know, you know, hey, the school is saying bagging groceries, but he really wants to work with animals. And when they do that partner, when they work with a community rehab program, it would be appropriate to tell that to them too, because they would be the ones that would be helping them find a job after high school. So you can talk about if your student has an IEP, that may be something to address if you're wanting them to get job training through the school. I don't know, if you could get that, but when they finish school, working with that community rehab program to work toward the goal that they prefer, but also advocating, in school, hey, they're wanting him to bag groceries and that's fine, but I'd really like for him to get experience or she get experience, if at all possible, working with animals, because that's his interest. Hopefully that answered that. Can you get a copy of this PowerPoint? I think Maria sent that out, or she will be sending that out.
Yes, that will be sent at by the end of the day, once we have the recording link so that we could upload it into the YouTube channel, but we will be sending the PowerPoint in a PDF format in the English version and the Spanish version as well.
The next question is, to get started with making a referral for a loved one, do we just call the number on your contact information on that slide? That's a great question. You feel free to reach out to either Andrea or I, and we can connect you to the person that you would need to connect with to get a rehab counselor, or you can just go to the website and go and find your location, and it will give you the number for that office. So you will be served from the office that covers your region. So we would see you after you're already in the referral process, but we also don't mind helping people get to where they need to go, because it can be kind of overwhelming getting in sometimes. What is the best way to apply or join Conexiones? So there's not really a process other than becoming an active vocational rehab client, so connecting to a rehab counselor, and then once you are in the system, and you can even say when you're joining, like, hey, we're wanting a job related to this, and we would really like for them to go through the Conexiones program. That is, they just make a referral to us about joining the program. So there's no interview or anything like that. It would just be a referral from the rehab counselor. I think that's it. Did I miss any?
No, those are all the questions that came through me and the ones that were put on the chat box so far.
Okay. I hope that was helpful. I know it can be very overwhelming. It's always really hard to kind of talk about what we do, because it's very large program with lots of sort of subdivisions within it, and kind of what one person gets from our services is going to be totally different from something else, just based on their needs. So I hope that was helpful. I'm really glad that we have programs like the Regional Autism Network to help navigate the kind of intimidating process that can occur as you're transitioning out of school. So I know they're a great resource as well, but feel free to reach out to us. So if we can be of any help, trying to get you connected, or be glad to try to help.
Okay, go ahead.
Samantha, there is another question. I don't know if this was answered.
That I don't know. You would just have to call the Medicaid office, I guess. Is that something that you guys would know, Dr. Hill or Maria?
I can't see the question. So.
Okay, the question,
Yeah.
any idea who we contact to get our loved ones signed up for non-income based Medicaid? So I will say that if the person is a consumer of ADRS, probably they should start with a counselor and see how they could be referral or assist. So that's where probably they should start.
Okay, is that all the questions then?
Those are all the questions.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to Andrea and Samantha for presenting today. I was so excited to see you and I am so, wow, has Connections evolved? I am so impressed and makes my heart proud of you guys. I want to thank presenters. I want to thank our interpreters, Ms. Du and Ms. Na for Korean, and Mr. Reed and Ms. Mobius for Spanish. We are so indebted to you for all the work you do, because I know it's not easy. I think it's kind of like an air traffic controller sometimes, trying to interpret as we're going. Our next training is 11 February and 22 February, and that's sexuality training for individuals with disabilities. And we will have interpretation available at least both in Spanish and probably have Korean for at least one of them. And the Alabama Autism Conference is the 25th of February. So do we want to stop recording now, Maria? And I'll stop showing